Hello and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. Now, my next guest describes himself as a speaker, a coach, a salesman, a writer, a boyfriend, a meditator, mediator, a marketer, a musician's too many M's, son, friend, brother, slam poet, clairvoyant, comedian, salsa dancer, lover of life, teller of bad jokes, we might hear a few today, yoga enthusiast, just like me, and an average cook, just like me. So, wow, we've got a lot in common and a lot to talk about. His entrepreneurial skills and sales professional skills, and he shares them by combining nuanced strategy and real-world tactics to help professionals become more efficient, effective, and happy. His friends call him DFish. He is a speaker, coach, and author of 9 books, including best-selling Hyper-Connected Selling and Networking for the 21st Century, Why Your Network Sucks and What to Do About It. Welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, DFish.
Thank you for having me. I'm fired up to be here.
Well, it's lovely speaking to you. Now, I read your book, Hyper-Connected Selling, a couple of years ago, and I absolutely loved it. And I particularly loved your term, Sales Sherpa. Could you explain more to the listeners what you mean by this?
Absolutely. So when I wrote Hyper-Connected Selling, I was really looking at how sales was changing because of technology, because of the new environment. I got my start in sales over 20 years ago in direct sales. And it's kind of old school, right? Where you just go out and you sit down with a prospect and try to convince them to buy something and hopefully get a signature at the end of the conversation. These days, because information is so available to our prospects, to our customers, they really have the power, right? The information asymmetry that used to favor salespeople now favors buyers. And that's great because they can go through a lot of their buying journey on their own. But where that leaves us, I think, as salespeople is we need to become true guides, true resources to help our buyers have better buying journeys, to make their decisions better, to make them faster, and to make them with less risk. And that, to me, is what being a sales Sherpa is. Instead of being a gate crasher where you're just trying to beat down the door of the prospect and make them buy something, it's really just positioning yourself as, again, that expert, that trusted resource who has gone up the mountain before and can take that prospect up the mountain safely, quickly, and easily.
I think it's really interesting that as salespeople, we assume that the buyer knows the journey. And actually, with so much information and the overwhelm, which you do talk about in your book, they actually, and they may have been in the job a year. You know, some of these big ticket items, it only gets purchased perhaps once every 5 or 20 years. There's nothing to say that they do know the journey. So I really do love your term, having been up the mountain before and guiding the buyer through the process, through the journey.
That's exactly right. There's so much information out there that actually buyers think they know how to buy, but they often don't. The example I give that I think many of us have experience with is just the idea of buying a house, right? We think we know how to buy a house, but if you only do it every 5, 7, 10 years, there's a lot of variables. It's not just as easy as going to the internet, looking at a bunch of listings and pushing a button. You might do that on Amazon for a small item, but for a house, there's a lot of complexity there. And I think that we're seeing, especially in the B2B space, buying decisions, there's more people involved in that decision. There's a lot more complexity. As you said, people might not have gone down that journey, and the last thing they want to do is make a mistake.
You kind of can't afford to make a mistake. And because of that complexity, everyone's kind of in it, but they're pushing in different directions. So there must be a certain amount of emotional intelligence. So it's not just a sales skill anymore. There's many other skills, negotiation, and even mediation as well, that must be involved in order to move that process forward.
That's exactly right. I think that it's critical that salespeople right now, and kind of the reason I wrote the book is that we look at sales in a broader way. Again, going back even 10 or 20 years ago, to be a salesperson was often, hey, can you hit the phones? And can you be resilient if a customer says no and just ask again? And just, it was a little more mechanistic, right? They were trying to make salespeople and machines to just, go through a very simple process over and over. Complexity and the abundance of information, I feel, really means that the successful salespeople of the future are going to be very well versed in both the kind of digital engagement, the marketing side, the prospecting and building and starting relationships obviously is still very important, but they have to be able to go in and then harness those very human skills, empathy, as you said, negotiation, trying to help create momentum for that prospect.
Too often sellers push too hard and want to control the pace and go for close way too early. This is another idea that came out of your book that impressed me, was the idea of simply moving to the next step, just taking one step to build the relationship. Often in sales books, they talk about the whole methodology, whereas actually you're kind of slowing it down. It's like, the objective of this is just to move one step, not 5 steps.
Right. And this is actually really tough for salespeople. And I've had lots of fun conversations over the last few years about it. There's a lot of pushback because the one thing that salespeople and sales leadership is not just the front line, but sales managers, sales, VPs, directors, they don't like thinking they're not in control.
Yeah.
And especially because as humans, we like to feel we're in control. And definitely there's some self-selecting into the sales profession of people that like to be, kind of gung-ho, alpha, take charge kind of people.
Yeah.
But because there's so much access information by the prospect, by the customer, we don't have that control. And I actually think it's silly to think that we do, right? In the old days, because the salespeople had the information, they kind of could control. The idea of dropping off a brochure 20 or 30 years ago made sense because that was the only way that a customer could get some information about the new product, for example. These days, they can go online, they can look at a white paper, they can do all their due diligence. In fact, the research shows that they're doing anywhere from 50 to 80% of the buying journey before ever engaging with the sales. So you're your guide, you're kind of guiding from the back. Right? You're letting them be in charge, but you're kind of like, hey, maybe do this, maybe do that. And then when the time is right, going, hey, you know what? It makes sense that I think we work together. You want to do that, right? And then hopefully that's how you get the business, as opposed to just wearing them down.
So we're both social sellers and talk and train on social selling, and so I'm interested as to what was the start of your engagement in social media and realizing that it is such an important tool for business.
Yeah, so I can actually say I'm pretty old school with that. So I started training people on LinkedIn in 2007, before it was even cool. I had to tell people, I was like, no, it's linkedin.com, not linked.in. And really, I came to it because, I had started my business a year or two before and had built and have continued to this day to build my practice really through referrals and networking and recommendations from people. And I just, really early on saw specifically LinkedIn. I'm like, wait, this is a way to take networking.
Given that we're all experiencing these unique challenges, what would your advice be to sellers and business leaders that must ride out the pandemic and hopefully come out the other side in a better place?
Yeah. The first thing I would tell any seller right now is that every situation is different. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of blanket statements being made, especially on LinkedIn. There's lots of fun debates right now. Is this a great time to sell? Is it a horrible time to sell? The reality is it's different for all of us. Our individual context matters greatly. For some industries, this is not a good time to sell, period. For others, this is a fantastic time to sell. And so that's why I would preface anything with. In general, though, I think for most of us, empathy is going to be really important. And it's actually irritating to me to hear so many kind of sales gurus or whatever you want to call them talk about how empathy is important right now. Because I'm like, wait, it wasn't before. Like, oh, now it takes a pandemic to think that empathy and being a human is important. So I get a little irritated with that. But there is a lot of truth here, which is no matter what kind of industry you're in, if you're going to engage, if you're going to prospect, if you're going to talk with your existing clients, empathy can't be done by a bot. And so it's also just a great skill to develop to keep yourself employed and successful.
Mm-hmm. And I think added to that, asking permission to move forward as well is a polite way. Having empathized, we're all in this, sharing this experience and have similar fears. But then it's like, asking their permission if they're ready to move on to, have that business conversation as well, rather than, okay, tick box, done that, now let's go into sales mode.
I think that's right. And that going back to, you were saying this earlier, like there's some human skills that are going to be more important. Yeah. Knowing that, rapport or empathy is not, oh, I checked the box, now I'm going to just say exactly what I was going to say anyways. It's having that empathetic human to human conversation and then understanding the nuance. Salespeople aren't always good at nuance. I think we have to learn, because they might have said something that triggers, oh, holy cow, I shouldn't move forward, right? This person's talking about working from home. They've got 4 kids in the background. Their business might be doing layoffs, and you're going to try to pitch them. You're not at the top of their list right now. Again, depending on what you're selling, but probably not. Maybe being, hey, should I check in with you next week? Or as you said, asking permission. Hey, does it make sense for us to keep talking about this project? They might say, yes, great. But yeah, just check. So I guess even in addition to empathy, it's just real conversation and listening. Where are you at? Where does it make sense? So.
Absolutely. Okay. I really liked the idea of having a conversation in a bar for your podcast. Beats and business. Now, I understand the beats because you're a drummer. You're a business guru, so the business. But I'm not sure, do you even like beer? Because in one of your episodes, you had a gin and tonic and it was 10 o'clock in the morning.
That happened once.
Really?
Oh, no, Julie, it did. I am a huge beer fan. All right, you're pulling out a deep cut if you're calling me out for having a gin and tonic. And hey, it's, we don't take the podcast too seriously. No, I'm actually a huge beer fan. And actually, the last couple of seasons, we've worked directly with craft breweries as sponsors. So they actually supply the beer to make sure that we've got good beer to drink. And, for me, having a conversation in a pub was always just a great way to actually do business. And my wife still laughs at me. Unfortunately, I can't do it so much right now. But she'd be like, "Oh, you're going to do business? I thought you're just going to go have a beer with a friend of yours." And that's pretty much what I was doing. But they also happen to be people who are my clients, who are my referral partners. And she gets really, to this day, gets really annoyed when I'm like, "Oh yeah, that client I'm going to go see right now, or that speaking engagement. Yeah, I was sitting in a bar talking with my friend, Mark, about that, and that's why I'm doing that." And she's like, "Oh," because she can't stop me now. She's like, "All right, go make money." But that's where the podcast came about. And it's a lot of fun, because I think you can have really interesting conversations when you get kind of past. We definitely do talk about business, but it's, when you talk to somebody about, what kind of beer they like or what kind of music they're into and why, it's just a fun conversation. You get to really, I get a chance to learn about people in ways that I probably normally wouldn't. So.
I think what's interesting, and what we often forget when we're in sales and business, is the kind of the whole brain, the whole life. Sales leaders and managers can help to motivate their sales professionals. And it's often not the thing that the business goal, it's the personal goal, it's the other bit of people's lives that's really motivating.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's important not to forget that we are real people, we're whole people, and we've got, different passions.
Right. I talk a lot about relationship building, both in sales and just general business networking. And I did not come up with this. I don't know where I heard it first, but it's so true. Don't worry about being interesting. Just be interested. Mm-hmm. Because when you do that, people will gravitate towards you. right?
Yeah.
Because we like people who are interested in us. So if you want to get people to like you and engage with you, just pay attention. That's a very
But
human
you know what, in
desire.
the sales thing, that can be quite dangerous because, they're interested, but they've got no interest. Do you know? Because they're still thinking about the sale, and they're doing all the right things. It's that kind of tick box again. And it's like, okay, be interested in things you're interested in, really, so that you've got a real connection. And you can find out what people are interested in. You go onto their Facebook account. Social media is brilliant for social listening and really getting to understand the character and the thing that drives people.
Right.
But don't read up on tons of stuff, because you're trying to get the deal. Actually, be authentic about it.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, that authenticity is important. And so, for example, I'm not a big sports ball guy. I'm sports just isn't my thing. It's I've got a lot of other interests, and I have friends who are big into sports, and a lot of people are. Like, I'm never going to fake liking sports, but I can still be interested in why, let's say, somebody really enjoys Arsenal, versus another team. I know the lingo over there. And that's the thing. You don't have to fake liking something to actually be interested. Right.
Yeah.
Why have you been a fan of that team for the last 30 years? Oh, because your father took you to the games when you were 5. Right. That's a real human conversation. I don't have to go, oh, I watch soccer all the time, or football, because I don't. But I can, so that's what I would say to, the people who think that going through a LinkedIn profile to find a couple things about them and then, pretend that they're also interested. That's not it at all. It is actually just, again, engaging on a human level with them.
I'm not into football or soccer. I've got half my family's out there. I know the terms as well. But I am a real F1 fan, and I love Wimbledon. But so the thing is you can always find a bridge so that they can reach you and you can reach them. And and it's actually I think it's not finding necessarily the subject, but finding the bridge to the subject.
That's exactly right. Because when you have that bridge, that's actually where communication can then happen, right? If you think about sales being about influencing people, it's the old school sales adage. People do business with those they know, like, and trust. If you don't have those things, I don't care what you're selling me. I'm probably not going to do business with you if I can't trust you, right? And how do we decide if we trust people, we like people? Oh, there's some shared interest, or at least some shared bridge. And then you can actually make some stuff happen, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, it looks like we've run out of time. I know I could talk. I said this at the beginning. I know I can talk to you forever. I've got in the show notes lots of links so people can reach you. But just tell us, what's the best way of contacting you?
Yeah, probably the easiest is actually through LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/IamDFish, IamDFish, or my website, davidjpfisher.com. Yeah, but definitely reach out, connect, happy to have a conversation. And we do have a landing page specifically for all of your listeners at davidjpfisher.com/podcast/scale-your-sales.
Excellent. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll have to do this again sometime and talk about some of the other things, like, your clairvoyancy. We haven't even covered that,
Oh boy, that makes me sound a lot weirder than I actually am. I'm not that weird.
Yeah, it does. It does, DFish. It makes you sound very weird.
It was just a fun class I took. We can focus on the salsa dancing. That's how I met my wife,
All right. Okay, then.
I'll talk about anything. It's all good.
Thank you for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, DFish.
Thank you for having me.